Today's topic is going to be Introduction to Data Builder. So the first thing that we'll start with is going to be today's agenda, just so we kind of know what's going on today. So we'll start with a little bit of an introduction to Data Builder. For those of us that we've never seen it before, worked with it before, what it is, what it does, and why you would like to use it. Then we'll start with a little tour of the user interface, just getting around, once again, targeted to the users that have not used it and are not familiar with it. Then we jump into our demos, which we actually have a total of 3. We have 2 for creating tables, so 2 different ways to create tables within your Data Builder file. And the last one is going to be how to incorporate those Data Builder files into your BarTender designer. As mentioned per the agenda, we're going to begin with an introduction to Data Builder. Let's look at a few bullet points and review just what it is exactly. In essence, what Data Builder is a application in your BarTender suite that allows you to create these BarTender database files, so Data Builder files. Within any one of these Data Builder files, you can have one or more tables that you'll have to create or import. And from there, you can either use those tables to populate your labels, just like you would other database platforms. And you can also use them in some of the other companion applications, such as the integration platform and process builder. A couple of the benefits to actually using Data Builder, you're able to quickly and easily embed data and more specifically images into your tables. If you use another platform, what you end up having to do is you reference a path name or you embed the image and they're static and conditionally printing into the template itself, right? Aside from storing the images in binary format, there's not really an easy way to pull a whole image from a database field and have that just work kind of quick and seamlessly. So we'll see how that works and what it looks like and what it ends up looking like on our labels. Also, we have a really powerful built-in validation tool. So what you can do is you can set a set of rules that allow you to dictate when data is entered if it meets your criteria, so if it validates. So if you have a need for currency or you have a need for a certain type of data or more, there's operators and all that. We're going to cover all that. So if you want it to be greater than or equal to, and you can set a set of rules, able to set a warning as well if those rules are not met. If you open Data Builder up, it's going to by default just have a single table on the left, and this is what the UI is going to look like. I've already imported a table into this screenshot just so we have something in the middle to view and see what the layout could look like. If you haven't added a table yourself, you'll just see table 1 and no records and no fields on the right. So this is going to be the main UI. Across the top, you're going to have a ribbon style menu, just like you do in the other BarTender companion applications. Down at the bottom on the left, you're going to have all your tables. And on the right, where we see product name, quantity per box, and images, that's going to be where all your field names and your data exists. At the bottom, we have the records, so what record you have selected and how many there are total, and the data view and the design view tab. We're currently on the data view tab. Up at the top, when you select the home option here, the home tab in your ribbon, you have the ability to add a new table or remove a table based on what you have selected. Now, the remove table in this screenshot is grayed out because I only have a single table created. If I had more than one, it would allow me to delete as many as I'd like up until the last one. The clipboard functionality, so that's going to be your basic kind of copy and paste of data, tables, all that good stuff, and also your keyboard shortcuts still work, so your Control-C, Control-V and all that. Under Edit, that's going to be just a quick and easy way to clear data if you just want to, clear your data, or remove all the fields from your table, same kind of scenario. And remember, whatever you have selected on the tables on the left and on the right, the actual fields or record, whatever field or record you have selected, based on what you click up on the ribbon is going to affect that specific selection. So if you have multiple things that you need to edit, you'll have to go through or select them all and do that, or go through and edit them individually. So we're going to go from the Home tab up at the top over to our Fields tab. So I threw in a few different samples of data and tables and all that so we can see just different examples of how things are set up here. So when we click on the Fields tab, we still only have one table on the left, so this is the Tools table. And on the right, we have the field names going across the top, starting with product name and all our data. Now we have the ability here to, under our fields option, we have the ability to add a field, remove the field. And if we select a given field, so in this case I have the MSRP, which is the third field over selected. If we select a given field, we can set a format. And we do have to select the format whenever we create a field as well, and we'll see that in the demo. But in this specific example, we have the MSRP, and the data type is going to be numeric or a number. The format type is going to be currency. If that validation fails, or if you don't meet that criteria when you enter data, you'll be prompted with an error message. We also have the ability to set a default value under the properties, and then more importantly, the validation section. So we have a quick few checkboxes, so for indexed, it's required, or we require it to be unique. And then we have a little validation drop down. That's where you see the blue check mark there. So if we go ahead and we click on a given field on our table, we select that validation drop down, we get two options. So we can either set a validation rule for the field or for the record. So based on the data, it's whichever applies, right? I found in most of my examples and working through this, you're probably going to spend more time in the field than in the record category, but the other option is there if you need it. There's a few different ways to get to this validation dialog that we're about to see. So this is just one of them, and we will cover how to get to the other section as well. So we're on the Fields tab up on our ribbon. We've selected a specific, record or field in the bottom right center where we see all our data, and then we clicked on the validation icon, and we're going to set a field validation rule. So let's say that we went ahead and we selected the MSRP option. So this is the validation dialog that will appear upon clicking on that option. From here, what you can do is you can create one or more rules that will allow you to enforce or validate your data, as I mentioned. Also, optionally, you can have an error message appear that's custom. So at the bottom I have, under error message on the bottom right there, I have price must be more than a penny. So based on what you need, you can create as complex a set of rules as you'd like, and you have a few different expressions that you can select from. And the way that it works is where you see where it says fields, constants, operators, and functions in the screenshot there, you can select those, and in the middle panel where you see MSRP highlighted, you can double click on that and it'll automatically populate that correct syntax in for you under the rule dialog, which is more towards the middle of the screen. So here we just say that MSRP is greater than 0.01. And lastly, which we already covered, is we set the error messages. So once we're happy with that, we can go ahead and we can hit OK, and that'll take us back to where we were previously at. So here we actually went ahead and clicked on the design view. So that's going to be the tab that's at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So where it says data view and design view, we've clicked on the design view. So remember, whatever table I had selected on the left, I'm selecting the properties for that. I'm in the design view of my data builder -demo1 DB table. So here what you can do is you can get a view of the design of your table. So you can change things like the field name itself, your data type. So do we want this to be a text? Do we want it to be numeric? Do we want it to be a picture? So we would set those accordingly. Any description that we want to set, we can set that as well. Going down to the field properties itself, if you remember those checkboxes, index, required, unique, true and false, the Boolean values, if you will, for those checkboxes, this is another way to do the same thing. So do you want those to be true or false? We can set our default values here. And then also, if we want to set a set of validation rules, we can click here and it'll open up that same validation dialog to review. You can either access these options via the ribbon like we saw previously, or you can click on the table and click down here in the design view tab and set it this way. There's not really a incorrect way to do that, just personal preference on that. And then we can continue on to one of our demos. As I mentioned, we have two demos for creating tables within our database, within our data builder file. And then we have a third one where we review how that file interacts or works with your BarTender designer or your label. So the first thing is going to be is you open Data Builder and you want to import your data from another platform. You don't necessarily want to be typing things in manually, right? So that is an option, and that's actually demo 2. But demo 1 is going to be where we just quickly and easily import things. And the nice thing about that is it doesn't necessarily have to be complete record-wise. It doesn't necessarily have to be complete field-wise or naming convention-wise, but it's possible that you have a database out there floating around that has a rough outline of what you need, and then you can kind of just build off that, set your validation rules from that, all that good stuff from the import that you do. So here we're going to start with just data builder. It's a new one. We have the table, the default table one name value that we can rename. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to import from a CSV file. So we have a CSV file out there that we're going to use for some mapping. So we'll go ahead and we're going to go to our table. We're going to click to import it, and we're going to select a new connection. Then we're going to select our platform here. So for this example, we're using a CSV file. So we're going to select text. But more or less, and if you've worked with BarTender and databases before, this wizard should look familiar. It's going to be more or less the same. So what's going to change from platform to platform is going to be the actual connection. So what I mean by that is if you select a text file like a CSV file, you're not going to have, usually, right? It's not going to be locked down. It's not going to be password protected. Whereas let's say you have a Microsoft SQL Server instance and tables within a database and tables within that, you're going to have to know things like the server name. You're going to have to authenticate. You're going to have to know what database. And usually there's a lot more in there in general. So you're going to have to know what you're looking for and what you want to import. But otherwise, you're going to follow kind of a general or logical flow, which will be you select your platform, you select the database, you select the table, and then you import it. So we're going to select the CSV and continue on. For CSVs, we're going to be able to browse because it is a file. So we're going to paste to where we have our CSV. And we're going to bring that in. We're going to see a preview of our record set. And for CSV specifically here, we are going to guess on the format. This one, it automatically detected that it was a CSV and allowed us to just continue on and hit finish. So we see that we have another table here, and all that information has been brought in for us. So the product name, quantity, all that stuff. And from here, what we can do is we're now ready to either delete the records that we don't need, add more records if needed. There's no pictures or anything like that here, so if we want to add a picture field, we can go ahead and do so. If you look, we have the item image field, but we're actually referencing a JPEG, which is presumably in a directory somewhere. Another option is we actually embed it within the table themselves, and we're not reliant on that external resource anymore. So that's one way to create a table, is by importing your data. Now, if you don't have that, what you can also do is you can just create a new table from scratch. So we begin again in the data builder. There's no welcome screen. This is what is presented to you upon opening the application if you don't have any previous tables. And we see the standard table 1 here on the left and no data or anything like that. Under these circumstances, the scenario that we would be in is we want to create a table to store our data, possibly to have dynamic data on our labels. Maybe it's part of an integration or something like that. But we want to try to think of what we want to name the table, what fields we need in that table, what kind of data is going to be contained within those fields, and we're going to have a rough sketch or outline of that. And this one is the one where we actually renamed the table, so we'll just name it tools table, something simple. And then we can go off to the right. And one thing to note is there's a few different ways to do this, to add fields as we saw. So you could click up on, we're on the fields tab on the ribbon up at the top. So we can click on those icons up there. We can just use the UI in the center. They more or less allow you to do the same thing, so whenever you create a field, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to select the data type or what kind of data it's going to contain. We already have our default ID field there, which I believe starts with record 0, and then it just increments up. So that's your prime key, if you will, there. We selected text. We have a product name. Then we can select a different type of data field type. We have number, so we'll call this the MSRP. Then we have, first we're going to set our validation here. So we already set the MSRP to number as a data type because that's the type of field that we created. This is what our edit validation dialog looks like. If you see here, I just double clicked on it. I go into my operators and I select the greater than operator. So I just double click that as well. then just type in the value that I need. I set my optional error message so I can warn my print operator of whatever criteria they're not meeting. If, excuse me, not print operator, my data entry person, of whatever criteria they're not meeting. And if you do have any kind of syntax errors in your rules, you'll get that warning. I'm not sure if you saw that as well. We've set a criteria there, or validation property rule for our MSRP. So now we see that implemented, and we can go ahead and add a numeric value, and it's happy. It's not complaining because the 12.99 is a numeric value. So we'll give it a product name. If you see, we're just manually entering some of the field values that we see in the previous screenshot. Then we'll enter, so this is going to be one of the more kind of reasons to use Data Builder here, which is harder to do with other database platforms here. So what we did there is we created a new field and we made the data type picture. And what that allows us to do is, as we'll see here in a moment, embed actual pictures within the table. So we'll name this product image, and we'll right click where it says no image data. And we're going to say insert from file. If I had something on my clipboard, I believe I could have pasted it. But I'm going to do insert from file. I'm going to browse to my pictures directory, select the correct image, and there we see the product image. So one thing that you may be wondering is formatting, right? Because you're thinking this is going to be on a label somewhere. How do I handle what kind of effects I want on it, the orientation, the positioning, the size of it? Maybe we have a mix of images. So remember that that's just going to come in just like the text. It's just going to come in as a data point, and it just so happens to be an image. Once you actually have it on your template, on your label, you can set whatever properties you need, such as the sizing, if you want it to be semi-transparent, if you want it to be oriented in a different way, whatever it may be that you need, you can do that later. The point of it here at this level, because we're in the database design level, if you will, is going to be just to get everything in here so that we can later utilize it from our BarTender designer. And pretty much what we'll do for the rest of this demo is just repeat for record 2. So the ID is going to be auto incrementing, so it starts at 0 as I mentioned. It's going to go to 1. We're going to enter some more data. Notice under MSRP we have a warning there that we have validation set, so enter some valid data. And we'll give it a price as well under our image, and we're going to bring that image in. So if you see the aspect ratio of the images are a little different, but we can still utilize them and we can just format them later. So now what I want to do is hit save, just how I have my cursor up there, and it's just going to be your standard dialog that appears if you haven't saved it before. If you saved it before, it's just going to update the existing data builder document. And we're going to save it wherever we need it, and then we're going to remember what we named that data builder file so that we can reference it from our BarTender designer or wherever we need it. In today's example, it's going to be from BarTender designer. We'll go ahead and we'll continue on to our last demo, which is going to be, let's say that we went through the hard work of designing our database. We have all the data that we could need in there for now. Remember, the database can be live. Products are added and removed all the time, so you can add to it and make it what you need it to be at that given moment. So we have the foundation for our database, and we're ready to just start designing our label and linking it all up and printing. So in our next demo, we begin with Data Builder itself, and we see kind of the same scenario, the tools table scenario, but we filled out some of the data and all the images there. We just have some generic images. We will review the data in the table, make sure we know where it's at. Then we come to this previously designed label, and we're going to go into our database connection. And from here, the first thing is going to be to select, once again, our platform. So if you do embed a table within a BarTender document, by the way, you get there by clicking Edit and then Embedded Tables. And it'll be the same thing where you go through this wizard to embed the tables. If you do go that route, that table does travel with the document. And what ends up happening is when that is applicable, you'll see the option here to select an embedded table. If you don't see that option here, which we don't, it's because we don't have a table embedded within this document. So we're going to reference an external file. So we're going to select our platform. And in today's demo, so you see here, so we have Data Builder. In the middle, we're going to hit Next. We're going to browse to our Data Builder file. Make sure we select the right one. It's going to be kind of the same logical workflow. So we select the database, we select the table. We're going to use the wizard. We only have a single table, so it's automatically going to add just a single table. And we go to record browser, and if we note, here is something particular to the Data Builder platform. When using this platform, using this database, we see that the product images are actual images that we can visually see and pull in as such and place on our label. So once we've connected to the database, because we've already designed the template, it's already ready to just link up to this data set, we can just go ahead and link everything up. So once we hit OK, we'll notice that in our data sources tab on the left, under database fields, we have all these options available to us now. And these options, they reflect what fields we have in our table. So we created these fields, and then we see the data coming in from the database. So all we're going to do is we're going to click, drag, and drop, and there's a few different ways to do this here. This is an easy way to do it, though, is just click, drag, and drop whatever field you want and place it in the object that you want, in the location of that object that you want. Notice the pipe or the black up and down arrow where you click, drag, and drop things. And that's where it's going to be placed within that text object. And if you see, all that formatting is adopted from what we have on the template here. So the next thing is going to be the picture. So in this particular template, what I did is I created a picture, and I've set my specific size, and I've set the source of the image to be from a data source, and the default for that is going to be embedded data here if we look at the type on the right. But because we have that picture field, we can change that embedded data to a database field. So we have get file name from a data source. By default, we have embedded data, as I mentioned, and we're going to change that to a database field. And we obviously want to select the correct database field. So we have country of origin, that's incorrect. Let's go ahead and select product image, and we'll hit finish, and we can hit close. And as we scroll through the record browser down at the bottom with the database view enabled, we should be able to see the actual data and images changing. Here we're just doing some quick formatting, changing this up to currency. And then as we click through this, we can see that all the data is being brought in and the images are automatically embedded within our template. So as we go off and we print whatever we select, however many copies we select, as you would imagine, it gets pulled from the database and automatically populated on your label. If prices change, if images change, and all that, as long as your database is up to date, your data builder file is up to date, you'll be able to utilize those or utilize that without any changes to the document. So if you're printing via an integration, or you're printing from PrintStation or any of the other ways process, possibly your print portal, you don't have to do anything formatting wise as long as the formatting and layout hasn't changed to your BarTender document. All you have to do is keep your data builder file up to date and you'll be fine. So that does conclude our demo of that one as well. So Jasper, whenever you're ready there, go ahead and see what kind of questions we have.
What edition of BarTender is Data Builder available in?
The professional edition or higher. Generally speaking, anything in the BarTender world is going to be, if you're using a database from a template or database related, you're looking at a pro or higher. In some instances, if it's integration related or anything or automated related, you're going to need automation or higher.
What applications can actually connect and use Data Builder files?
For the time being, it would just be BarTender applications, but it would be any of, so it'd be the integration platform, process builder, and your BarTender designer, which is the demo that we saw today.
Can you actually share Data Builder files with multiple computers and users?
Yeah, so you can, it is just a file that you can email out or send out or put in a shared drive and use across multiple PCs. If you do reference, I guess, the caveat or the thing to think about is if you do reference a data builder file from anywhere, I mean, it's like a network share or something, whatever user, whatever operator is accessing it is going to need access to that file, to that folder, etc., in order to be able to access it.
Can multiple people at the same time access the file?
Yes, they can.
Do images need to be in a particular format or resolution? What can you kind of use for that?
Yeah, so there is a pretty big list of supported image types that we have. It's going to be kind of like your standard image supported image formats that you're used to from your BarTender designer. And the formats don't have to be the same. The resolution or DPI or anything like that, or whatever reference point you use, do not have to be the same. The only thing you have to be aware of is obviously, if you have a very small resolution image and you mix that with a bunch of high-res images and you make the space for it big on your template, you might get some distortion. So if you distort an image, that's not going to overcome that. But there is no rules to follow on that. Just mix and match, and as long as they're relatively close, you'll be fine.
Can you actually password protect, or how can you secure like your data builder files?
The data builder files, or data builder itself, is going to have an option to set a password per se, but what you can do is you can leverage BarTender's built-in security, and you can build a security profile based off the Windows user, and then based on not just data builder alone, but anything else that you have going on, you can restrict access to data builder or to data builder files so that unauthorized users don't go in there and start deleting your data or anything like that.
Is the data builder file itself encrypted, or is the data encrypted?
It is not encrypted per se. So it is not encrypted in the fact that if you have access to the application, let's say the security profile in your environment does not prohibit you from accessing Data Builder, you kind of have access to all the data and fields, etc., in that file, in that Data Builder file. But if you try to open it in Notepad or something like that, you're not going to be able to, you might be able to corrupt the file, but you're not going to be able to depict any kind of data from it.
Why use a data builder instead of like a SQL Server database or an Access file?
Well, for one, not every single customer is always going to have access to those companion applications. If you're only allowed to use BarTender and all its associated applications, that kind of knocks out other databases like that. Two is, like let's say you do have a SQL database or something like that, it's restricted, you're not going to have live access to it. You can do an export and import it into Data Builder. Lastly, it's probably going to be the most prominent one, is going to be the data validation and the image functionality and all that. So you can create those complex rules where you set all your different functions, your set of rules that allow you to prohibit bad data from getting through. And then also the easy to use import of images without having to convert them to binary or do any weird formatting or things like that that can get complicated. And what ends up happening is that's just out of reach for some customers. So like this, what you can do is you can have a whole BarTender packaged file, embedded data or embedded table and everything is just in a single file, and you can email it across and share it across your colleagues, with your colleagues and all that. And there's no need to worry about reference point as far as where images are located, where other resources are located, where is that Excel file located, was it renamed, are concurrent users using it, do we have access to that SQL database, etc. So it would be a combination of those things.
Do like the integration actions work with data builder files?
Yes, so you can build, there's various ways that you can do it. You can build integrations where you have, table joins and all that, and, you're referencing, you're waiting for a new record to be updated or a certain time or a newer stamp, that sort of thing. You can reference the data builder file from the BarTender document, and maybe it's a file drop integration or, some other type of integration, but you're referencing it for a data standpoint. But yeah, so all the actions that you would be able to use with your standard integration, not just your standard type of database, all the actions are going to be available to you. You shouldn't see a limited selection of that. Thank you for joining us today. This does conclude this particular series. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you.